Hello. Recently, Mumsnet arranged for Picador, the publishers, to send me a book for review. This is the book, Villa America by Liza Klaussmann, and I have written a review of it, and it's on my blog, casssummers.com. I just sort of give you a bit of a rundown here because some people don't read my blog; they just go straight to YouTube. There's lots of on the back cover. There are a few little one-line reviews, and on the inside there's a bit of a blurb of what the story's about. And inside the back cover there's a picture of Liza Klaussmann herself. I usually take the covers off books when I get them, hardbacks anyway, because I find the covers are distracting when I'm reading in bed. They get in the way, and when they're on my bookshelves, as you can see from looking behind me, this is just a tiny portion of the books we have in this house. I love books, and I think books look much nicer on the shelf in all their naked glory without the paper covers on them. So I took the cover off. But I do want to talk about the cover for just a minute. That's what they're called. I thought Mumsnet had sent me a romance novel. Here's a lady with her high heels on and her swimming costume at the beach, and gazing adoringly up into this very well-built man there. And I thought, oh, okay, they've sent me a romance novel. It's not the sort of book that I usually read, but don't judge a book by its cover. So I decided to read it. And I read the blurb, and then I thought, okay, so this book's about Pablo Picasso and Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway and his wife Hadley and Cole Porter and his wife Linda, and I've always been quite intrigued by that era, the sort of 1920s, 1930s era, and it's set in the south of France. So I thought, oh, well, it might be a good read, so I'll have a look at it. I have to warn you, it starts out quite grim. There is a death on the first page and on the second page, and those people, and then it flashes back. So it starts in 1935, and those two people, we don't meet them straight away because the book goes back to 1898, and then we do meet these people that die in the first chapter. We meet them, and then we get to know them throughout the book. So we know that what's coming. We know that there's going to be deaths at the end of the book. The main characters of the book, though, were not the people who died. Sarah. The main characters are Sarah and her husband Gerald, the Murphys, and they're not star-crossed lovers, but they meet, and her family's opposed to them getting married, but they get married anyway. He goes off to war, and there's an intervention of various sorts. He comes from a terrible, loveless family, and his has wealthy family. He has a nanny, a nurse, and she's very cruel to him, and his father is very cold and distant, and he gets a terrible time with his pet dog that he loves, and they're very mean to the dog, and eventually the boy gets shipped off to boarding school, but eventually he finds love with Sarah, and they, after the war, marry, have children, move to the south of France, and they build this lovely life. It all is beautiful. They build a gorgeous house. They have these artistic friends, the Fitzgeralds and the Hemingways and the Picassos and the Porters and lots of other people. I did get a bit confused by all the people. There are a lot of characters that pop in and out, and there are brothers and sisters and wives and husbands, and I wasn't really sure who all the people were at times, and I did have to go back to the beginning and read through to find out where that person was introduced, because I can't remember if somebody's name was Pauline. Who's Pauline? And I have to go back and look up Pauline, because the last name isn't always given, or the relationship isn't sort of explained again until it becomes clear in the story a bit further on. They have this lovely south of France existence, going to the beach every day, and the children are all running around swimming, and they're quite young. They sort of range from about 2 to about 7, run around naked on the beach, and they're brown as a berry, and the adults all sit around with their picnics and their servants, and drinking sherry in the morning, and playing, dressing up as Asian, having an Asian dress-up day, and just having a really fabulous time. But the way that Liza Klaussmann has drawn these characters and the relationships between them all is really interesting. She has done a lot of research with letters and memoirs and books and things from the Hemingways and from the people. There's Sarah and Gerald Murphy are real people, and their daughter wrote a memoir, and there are letters that exist from this period, and there are references in Scott Fitzgerald's book to the Murphys. So these are real people, and the relationships that are described. I mean, there's a point where history meets fiction, and that's where the story is, as she explains right in the afterword, after the story finishes. That's the point where the author can let their imagination run wild, and so she's introduced some characters which didn't exist, which may or may not have existed. We really don't know, but she's embellished and she's made up stories about them, and so it's interesting that the way that she draws these relationships and the arguments she describes between the Ernest Hemingway and his wife, or between Scott Fitzgerald and his wife, and how the sort of stabilising thing throughout all these tumultuous relationships and dramas that are going on amongst all their friends are Sarah and Gerald and their lovely home and their such stable family. But of course, we know that there are going to be terrible things. We're told in the blurb that there's tragedy coming. We know from the very first chapter of the book that people are going to die. So that's hanging over all the way through. While you're reading the book, you think, oh, I know this person's going to be dead by the end of the book. What's going to happen to this person and this other person, because two people die. So anyway, I do recommend, I won't talk too much about it, but go and read CassSummers.com, read the review that I've written on there. But by the end of the book, it was a bit sad. I was sort of getting towards the end of the book and thinking, oh dear, I know this person's about to die, because I'm getting very close to the end of the book. And then she does finish off with a rather heartwarming chapter, though, and a bit of a flashback, and it leaves you feeling what wonderful parents they are, really, and what a wonderful extended family they've made out of their very, very intimate friends, because the families that Sarah came from and that Gerald came from were not the closest, and so they've made their own family with their children and with their friends. So have a look at it. There is a link to the book on Amazon on my blog, and you can go there and buy it if you like, if you want to read it, or borrow it from your library, or download it through Kindle or whatever. Villa America by Liza Klaussmann. And leave me a comment if you've read this book, and let me know what you think. Bye.